few tips and tricks as you're getting started with predictive planning here is you must have a working version in your application. If you don't, it's not going to think that you're configured to use predictive planning. You also need to have data in your actual working scenario version. It takes your actual working, and that's what it uses as your historical data source. So if you only have data at actual final, it's not going to recognize that you have any historical data in your system. So you'd have to come up with a process to move that data over from actual final to actual working, so that it has a historical data to use for predictive planning. I just want to show you why you should have at least 6 months worth of historical data before you're using predictive planning. Again, the more data you have, the more accurate the prediction, if it's relevant data. But as you can see in the top chart, if you have less than 6 months of data, it's just going to give you a straight line prediction. If that's what you want, that's great. That's what it's going to give you. But as you can see down below, if we add 2 months more worth of historical data, that line is already going to change to more accurately represent the prediction based on your historical data. So just a tip going forward. An app or form setup here, the time access and non-time access must be prevalent in your form. So on your time access, you must have either a year and or period in your rows or columns to create that time access. So in our graph, we had year and period in our columns. And then in our non-time access, we must have a dimension other than scenario or version. So in our case, we had accounts in our rows to make our non-time access. A tip from me from working with predictive planning, I would say to identify your scenarios or versions to be used in the form, because those scenarios or versions in the form will be used for predictive planning. So in our case, we used the forecast working. So that's what was displayed in the form, and that's what you got used in the graph or line chart in the predictive planning. So, and that's what we can paste to. So if you want to paste to budget working, I would suggest identifying that to be used in your form ahead of time. So just something to think about as you're getting started with predictive planning. And then also to use the pasting or chart dragging to adjust values, all your columns and rows need to be expanded. So you can't have your quarters collapsed and your quarters showing. It wouldn't adjust the data if it's not expanded. And if your data or your chart is read-only, it's not going to allow you to paste or adjust data values either. It's just kind of a safeguard for yourself.